back again to English for You video series. And for a few days, as you know, we have been on a mission to present a few chapters in the form of videos from class 10 English syllabus, because the boys, the girls, the students are facing the board exams. They're quite around the corner. And in today's video, we have taken a chapter from the First Flight, which is the main literature book from class 10. And you must have guessed the story. That is the first story of the book. That is A Letter to God. Yes, you heard it right. I'm talking about a letter to God, a letter written to God. So the question is, do people write letters to God? Yes, if you have the amount of faith that our lead character in the story, Lencho, has, you too can think of writing a letter to God. But does God also respond to letters? Does he read them? Don't know. Let us listen to the story. You will come to the conclusion. You will know about it. So before we go on talking about the story, because stories, they talk about several things. They do entertain us. At the same time, they also tell about so many things. They show us, or they portray to us, the society of that time, the kind of people which lived then, the way they lived, the way they approached their problems, the way they found the solutions, the living conditions. Everything is reflected to you in the form of a beautiful story. So in this story, A Letter to God, too, you will come to know about several beautiful things that we call a letter to God. And as you see on the board, the writer is G.L. Funetus, a very popular name in Mexico, a great influence he left on the Mexican literature. And more than being a prose or poetry writer, he is considered a chronicler who chronicled the effect of Mexican Revolution on the society over there. So if I say Mexican Revolution, that was a revolution that happened between 1910 and 1920, when people rose against the then regime and overthrew it. Reasons might be many. It lasted, the upheaval that started in 1910 lasted for 10 years, ended in 1920. And society is definitely affected by such events, large-scale events, a civil war-like condition. Well, there were several fractions and people kept toppling the governments and bringing another one. So society is definitely affected, and all those effects were beautifully recorded by G.L. Funetus. So he is considered the greatest chronicler of Mexican Revolution. So if you talk about his life, then he was born in 1897 and he died in 1966. And it was Mexico. He belonged to Mexico. It's a beautiful country, though it is still not so developed. Poverty is there. Backwardness is there. It's still struggling to come ahead to become a developed country. It is in North America. There are three major countries in North America: Mexico, the USA, and Canada. USA and Canada both are very developed. Mexico is still lagging behind, trying to come up with a few things so that he can be on the same pedestal. So G.L. Funetus, Mexico, and chronicler he is. Chronicler of Mexican Revolution. Mexican Revolution, and that happened between 1910 and 1920. He was not so successful as a prose writer or poem writer, but yes, as a chronicler, he is considered to be the greatest of that time. And if we consider this story, A Letter to God, by his simple yet powerful writing, he is definitely successful in impressing us and acquainting us of several influences that ruled the society then. It also throws light upon the pitiable condition of the small farmers And the condition of the small farmers is almost same in any society. You take India, you take Brazil, you take Germany, even you take any, and especially the developing countries, the farmers are fighting for their livelihood to exist. Particularly the governments hardly take care of them. You see in India too, the farmer movement has been going on with some demands. I don't know what will happen, but the farmers have been living the same miserable life in almost all the parts of the world, especially very small farmers. And Mexico being a developing economy, the farmers are poor. They have their own problems and they have to solve it themselves. Even for agriculture, they have to depend upon the rain. Everything is quite obvious from the story. We easily can perceive these things. So we are talking about a letter to God. Let me clean the board and we can talk about several things in the story. A few of the things I told about the writer. Now let us talk about the story, a letter to God. Fine. So who is the lead character? That is, this is Lencho. We call him Lencho. He is our hero. And very strong character he is. Do mind. And how the story starts? Starts with the description of the location of Lencho's house. And where is his house located? Where is his cottage located? It's on the top of a low hill. It's on the top of a low hill, okay, which is overlooking the valley, huge valley, and somewhere down there is flowing a river. So from the top of that hill, from his house, he can see the whole valley and the beautiful river flowing by. He can also set his eye upon all his cornfields, which are promising a very good crop, dotted with flowers. But Lencho is a man who understands nature well. He understands his crops also. And by observing his crops, he comes to this conclusion that one good shower or one downpour can create a tremendous change in the amount of yield that they were going to have. And one good rain could make him rich, could make him comfortable for that year. So what he does, he keeps looking towards the north sky throughout the day, and by afternoon he sees the clouds rising in the north. The air is wet with the scent of the rain. It is fresh. And very happy he comes home and tells his wife, "Woman, we are going to have rain today." But a very remarkable statement is made by his wife. He says, "Yes, God willing." You see, just here, the theme of faith has been projected. How faithful they are and how they think that everything is governed as per the will of God. And if He wills, only then we will have rain. If not, we cannot. And so she tells her husband, "Yes, God willing." And the older boys, they have been working in the field. The younger ones have been playing around the house, and everyone is called in for dinner because dinner time. All sit for dinner, and while they have been eating, they are eating. Big raindrops start falling. Lencho is excited. He is elated, you can say. He comes out of the house just to feel the rain. He was very happy. It has been raining well, beautifully. And he comments that these big raindrops, they are 10-cent coins, and these smaller ones are 5-cent coins. And really, if that rain continued for some considerable period, he was going to reap a very rich harvest. He was very happy. It was natural to be happy. Quite natural for a man who has worked so hard for weeks to reap that beautiful crops, the rich crops. And now a rain is going to be an aid to his effort to increase the yield manifold. So he is happy and naturally happy. But it doesn't last long. See the turn of fate now. Strong wind starts blowing. And very soon, with rain, comes the hailstones. And Lencho says it's getting bad now, better it passes quickly. But it doesn't pass quickly. It has some other plans. Nature has some other plans. And for 1 complete hour, it keeps raining hailstones. And when it stops, Lencho can see the whole valley is completely covered with a white sheet of hailstones. Everything has been destroyed. There is not a single leaf left on the trees. The corn has been completely destroyed and devastated. And Lencho is shocked. He's unable to think anything. It's quite natural to be in that condition for a man who has to take care of his whole family just with the amount of crops he was going to have. And the man who had worked so hard to bring that about, to make that reality, and just within an hour, with one stroke of nature, everything is destroyed. So he is also devastated. It's quite natural for him to devastate it. And here one more theme is running in the story, that is nature versus man, or destiny versus man, or you can say fate versus man. Yes, it's not only man's effort that bears fruit all the time. Sometimes it's fate also that tries to conquer the man, that tries to sweep him off his feet. But what happens at the end is another thing. But yes, the struggle has been constant between man and nature, between man and destiny. And sometimes the destiny wins when the man is weaker. But when man is strong, he defeats the destiny and charts out his own way. That has been the story since the humanity came into being. That has been still going on now. So Lencho, devastated, makes this comment, even the plague of locusts would have left more, and this year we are not going to have any corn to eat. But faith, again the theme of faith is there. Faith runs very deep in the whole family. When he comes home, they console each other. Don't worry, nobody dies of hunger. God sees everything. And Lencho also has this deep faith within, that God sees everything. Everything, even what we cannot see through our naked eyes, what is within a person. So he has sound faith in God. And that night, in that night of sorrow, night of devastation, night of dismay, there is one hope in the heart of every member of that family, and that hope is help from God. So the following Sunday, Lencho, who has been an ox of a man, very hard working, he works as hard as an ox used to do. So the writer calls him an ox of a man, but he has got one speciality, that he also can read and write. So he sits with a pen and paper on the following Sunday and he writes a letter. And it's nothing short of a letter to God. Yes, you rightly heard it. He writes a letter to God and he writes, "Dear God, all my crops have been destroyed because of the hailstones. My family has nothing to eat. I badly need 100 pesos to survive throughout the year and to sow my fields again till the new crops come. So please send me 100 pesos. Then he signs the letter. Lencho folds it, puts it in an envelope, seals it, goes to the post office himself in the town, buys a stamp, affixes on it, and drops it in the mailbox by writing the address on the conscription, that is to God. And he goes home. The moment the postman who is there to sort that letter out, he's sorting letters and trying to put them in different bundles for different destinations. The moment he sees this strange address to God, he bursts into laughter. And laughing, he runs to his boss, the postmaster. The postmaster also breaks into laughing when he sees that strange address. But the next moment, he stops laughing. He gets serious. And in a tone of envy, he says, "I wish I had half the faith of that man." who wrote a letter to God. Then he decides to read the letter because he doesn't know where that letter would be sent. He doesn't know that address. Nobody knows that address to God. Nobody knows where God lives. So he reads the letter and decides that he would do everything to keep Lencho's faith in God intact. But upon reading the letter, he comes to know that it's not mere goodwill that is enough to keep Lencho's faith in God intact. He needed to do something more. But he resolves to do that something more, and he asks for help from all the people, from his acquaintances, from his friends, from his family, from his post office employees. He also donates a part of his own salary. But unfortunately, he is capable of collecting only a bit more than half, that is around 70 pesos. But he puts all the money in an envelope, writes a small letter and signs it God, then seals it, writes Lencho's address on the conscription and keeps it in the post office. The next Sunday, Lencho, who had been expecting a letter from God, arrives at the post office very early, and he asks if there was any letter for him. And the same postman who had seen his letter strangely addressed to God, he brings that envelope to him. And the postmaster from behind the counter is observing everything, feeling the satisfaction of a man who has done a good deed. And everybody is awestruck to see that Lencho is not even slightly surprised, as if he had been expecting the same, that he didn't have even an iota of doubt. And so he counts the money. But when the counting gets over, his face wears an angry expression, and he goes back to the counter and he asks for a piece of paper and a pencil. He sits down there at the public writing desk, and with much effort, with frowning his brow and everything, with an effort to put his ideas into the letter and just trying to express himself perfectly, he writes a letter to God. And then he folds it, puts it in another envelope, buys another stamp, affixes on it, and then drops it in the mailbox and goes home with the money. The moment he goes off, the post office staff run out of curiosity to the mailbox. They take that letter out and they bring it to the postmaster. And the postmaster opens it and reads it. And it has been written in the letter, "Dear God, I asked for 100 pesos, but there were only 70. I need the rest of the amount, so please do send me that amount, the 30 pesos. But this time don't send the money through the post office, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks." And there the story comes to an end. The stories nowadays are not the ones which have a proper beginning or proper ending. The writer leaves the story at a place where he has shown whatever he wanted to show, and he leaves it for the reader to imagine the kind of end he wanted. So therefore this story of ours of Lencho ends like this. And you may imagine, you may think of the kind of expression that would have come on the faces of those people who were reading the letter. So several things. Now, there is another theme which had just passed in this story, that was lack of gratitude. An unshakable faith in anything is good, but if it is not accompanied by a feeling of gratitude, it may cause problems. Like Lencho's faith does. He does have the faith, the sound faith in God, but he is not grateful to those who have helped him. Or he is not even grateful to God. Had he been grateful, he would have thanked him for whatever help he received from him. It was another thing that he would have written for 30 more pesos, but calling those post office employees a bunch of crooks, it was not a good deal. So we find lack of gratitude as another theme running in the story. So we have seen 3-4 themes. First it was faith, then it was lack of gratitude. So several themes we find in the story. And now let us talk about Lencho and the postmaster, which are two major characters in the story. Lencho is a great man. Seeing his status, seeing the strata from which he comes, he is a poor man. But he has several qualities. He is very hardworking. That's why the writer calls him the ox of a man. And unlike other farmers, he can read or write. That's why he's capable of writing a letter to God. And that's a big achievement for a man from that strata of society who is so poor, poor small farmer, but he knows how to read and write. The third quality that he displays is he has got unshakable faith in God. Faith that is rarely found among people. It's a rare thing, but he does have the faith, such a strong faith that he thinks of writing a letter to God, and not only writing a letter to God, he also expects a reply from him. And when he's given another envelope, he is not at all surprised. It shows that what a sound faith he had in God, and that is really enviable. That's what the postmaster envies, saying, I wish I had half the faith of that man. So Lencho's character is really very strong. But as every human being is made up of merits and demerits, so Lencho too has certain demerits also. Like he is not grateful to the source from which he receives help. Otherwise, he would not have called the post office employees the bunch of crooks. We also find him a bit intolerant at the end. Now, whenever he finds questions like, don't you think that Lencho was intolerant and erratic of nature, that he becomes happy very soon, and in the same amount of time he gets dismayed also, disappointed also. No, in the beginning we find him getting happy on seeing the clouds rising from the north direction. That was quite natural for a man who has worked so hard and who has been expecting strong crops, good crops for his family. And it was equally natural for him to be disappointed or dismayed or even devastated to see all the crops destroyed because of the hailstorm. Put yourself in the shoes of Lencho. Would you not have been so happy to see the rain in the north when your crops are waiting for it? Would you not be equally devastated if all your crops would have been destroyed? Crops means livelihood, his bread and butter, that is taken away from him, and for the whole year. So it is definitely a matter of being devastated. And so if he gets so, he's not unnatural or abnormal. Yes, but he does show some kind of intolerance towards the end of the story, when he, instead of being thankful for the people or for the source, just take it God, for God who had helped him through those people like postmaster and the employees and his friends and acquaintances. Instead he calls the post office employees a bunch of crooks. So it does show impatience, it does show intolerance, it does show he has got a fleeting nature. Yeah, but in the beginning it's quite natural for him to be so. Now let us talk about the second character. The second character is the postmaster. There are two main characters. There are some other minor ones, but we would talk about the major ones only. And the second character, which is important, is the postmaster, who is a very good fellow, amiable, helpful, kind, cooperative. He's got a heart of gold. So when he sees Lencho having such a strong faith in God, he decides to protect it. And he does everything that is in his power to protect that faith. And he has collected almost more than half the money to send to Lencho in the form of help. And that's definitely a great act. It does put him in a very good frame But yes, there is one small weakness that we see. When he helps Lencho, he does think that he should see that expression of thankfulness, gratitude, happiness over Lencho's face. If you help somebody, if you do some good deed, you should not be expecting things in lieu of it. But the postmaster does. That's why he gets disappointed. That's why he must have been shocked when he reads that the post office employees were a bunch of crooks. So this is the whole story, the major characters, the themes running through it, and the writer I talked about, G.L. Funetus, and the story. This is small story, but yeah, it has got some important morals. That if we have good faith or sound faith in something, that's really appreciable. But with it, we should also have that feeling of gratitude. Faith must be accompanied by a feeling of gratitude. And that's what we should try to adopt in our lives too. That's why we read stories, to learn something, to know about something, and also to get entertained. So I hope you have understood the story. And if you really liked my explanation, please don't forget to like the video and also to subscribe my channel so that with the information regarding the other videos and everything reaches you on time and very fast. So meet you very soon with another video, and thank you very much for bearing with me. Just stay well, stay safe, stay protected, take all the precautions, work very hard, and I do wish that you do very well in the board exams. Thank you very much for being with me.